Thank you, Marianne, and thank you so much for having me here today. It's very
My pleasure.
exciting. It's very exciting. I believe that sustainability is not new for all of us, but I'm sure you have already heard a lot of different speaking from different organizations. But in the coming 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to give you some more background about what we are doing, what we have been doing in a manufacturing perspective. The first page is all about a quick intro about our corporate sustainability journey. And it all began by a magnificent mind for the greater good, set by our chairman, Mr. Kenneth Lowe. He held on this belief for more than 50 years, ever since he started our company. And honestly, he always think beyond our own selves, and it has become more than a practice. It has also become our corporate culture, influence all our colleagues and to our stakeholders. Since 2007, we launched our first 5-year plan with a more specific target regarding sustainable practices. And it has been 14 years until now, really excited, and we see a lot of accomplishments. For example, reducing our product carbon footprint by 40%, reducing the freshwater consumption by 52%, and we have planted more than 3.03 million trees and empowered over 54,000 female colleagues within our whole corporate. And upcoming, we are looking forward to a bigger version, a bigger vision. It's about 2030 vision and, of course, net zero in 2050. Crystal Denim, a specialist in denim making, we are keen on our sustainable project as well. Here, I would like to show you the milestone because I know we all want to develop sustainable products. Otherwise, we won't be here today. But honestly, it won't happen in one day. And I hope by sharing our milestone, it could be a quick recap of what we have been doing in a certain period of time. It begins in 2008, right after we launched our 5-year target. We begins with the phase one. It's all about hardware installation, the laser machine, water recycle plants, and it penetrates to all customers actually. Um, and we are seeing the laser technology has been used increasingly in recent years. And the phase one installation of facilities helped us to launch a lot of partnership programs with our target customers. Back in that time, we focused a lot on water reduction programs. For example, Levi's, Waterless, it's really familiar. And Get for Good. And then until 2016 to 17, I think, we started to see a market changing. The demand of sustainability product has been increasing, and it relies more on the supply chain to contribute in sustainable innovation. That was the time we started to launch our very own in-house program, as well as explore the possibility of digitalization in our design stage. In these couple of years, we started to turn into a more visionary phase. We seek for something that's more than just the product itself. We seek for a revolution change in the operation model or our design methods. So we started to look at the circularity guidelines and the carbon reduction actions. So I think here's something from our experience. While we cannot do things at once, it's really important to start with a clear and achievable goal and to find the position for your own brand, set the TNA, and review and evaluate the plan from time to time. As mentioned, since 2020 and onwards, circularity has been one of the very big topic for, I think, not only the fashion industry, but for everyone. The regenerative system, the carbon reduction actions, those are the key words in sustainability. So here's the time we step back and rethink about fashion and design. Global clothing sales has been doubled for the past 15 years. In addition to the skyrocketing revenues, everyone is happy about it, but not so happy about it is we bring a lot of negative impacts to our environment as well. Therefore, we urgently need to change the linear, traditional, made-to-dispose model to a more circular thinking model. Here are some examples that I can share with you all. It's a project that follows the circular thinking model in 5 aspects, from design, materials, manufacturing, usage, and recyclability. For example, Marianne has mentioned about my blueprint calculator. This is tools to track carbon emission for transparency and traceability purpose. Another project, we call it Second Life, is we collect the cut waste um, and regenerate to new denim fabric. Force Zero is eco-washing method, trying to reduce the use of water and chemical as well. Wash Miners, we teamed up with Noble by using silver iron to create self-cleaning jeans. We try to think more about the consumer aspect um, to go for a wash less idea. So people would not always need to wash the jeans too frequently. So it helps to save water from cradle to grave. And the next important topic is about carbon emissions. I'm sure everyone is aware. But here we try to give you a little bit more background about what is carbon emissions and why net zero is so important and the way to achieve net zero. I would say carbon emissions started when the Industrial Revolution started. We discovered the fossil fuels. We ever changed the way we produce clothes, not by hand, but by machines. And it released huge amount of CO2. And it unfortunately lead to the climate change. So when we look at garment manufacturing, the main carbon emission comes from power generation. So basically, all activities that involves power contribute to carbon emissions. For net zero, of course, we cannot go back to the ancient times. We do everything by our own hand. But net zero can be achieved by extensive reduction plan and reduction actions before we offsetting the remains. When we talk about the carbon emission, I know sometimes it could be an abstract concept because it's like a vapor. We cannot see it, we cannot feel it, or we cannot see it, but they exist. So Denim Carbon Calculator, my blueprint, is a tool for the public to visualize carbon emissions during jeans production. It's quite an ambitious project to track all the data in a product level because we actually examine over 300 steps, over 40 different types of machines, and summarize into 4 product categories. We built up a website. Hopefully, by using it, the audience can understand carbon emissions from manufacturing processing. Shortly after we released my blueprints, we jumped into another ambitious project by HKQAA, the Net Zero Certificate. It is a cradle-to-gate product assessment. We designed the jeans, embracing the idea about good by design, considering both design and the making process. For example, in design stage, we use 100% cotton fabric and sewing thread for the recyclability and degradability. We eliminate unnecessary trims and sundries. Even for a single button, we partners with our upstream suppliers to develop buttons with lower melting point metal. And during the manufacturing process, we applied energy efficiency front loading machine and the drying hanging system and the pre-drying process in order to achieve energy savings. When we verify the data, we track our carbon inventory from raw materials, fabric, buttons, and our own factory operation, and verify by ISO 14064. And then we are proud to be the first and only company piloting the product level certificate.
I want to dive in to just ask you straight away, do you feel responsible as a supplier to your brands, to yourselves, to all the people that you touch on, because your supply chain is long and it doesn't just stop when you export your jeans?
Agree. And honestly, Marianne, this is a big question to start with. I think it's time for us to face the facts and to examine every step about how the way we make clothes. And being a responsible manufacturer, we are in a position where we are able to understand, manage, and take actual actions to reduce the impact to our environment. For example, for instance, apply cleaner energy using digitalization and automation system to maximize our energy efficiency. However, what we can do or what we can control limits in scope 1 and 2 that includes the direct and indirect carbon emissions with our own operation. But we also need to pay the attention to upstream and downstream distribution. And ironically, the biggest contribution to carbon belongs to customer care.
Yeah, yeah. But as you say, it's that education to the consumer with the projects that you've done where you're saying you don't need to wash your jeans as often. You do have to have the longevity.
Yes, it's about your relationship with your clothing.
Yeah.
Are you washing your jeans too frequently or your closet too frequently, or are you disposing your clothes too quickly? That contributes to carbon emissions.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And do you talk to your brands about when they go to marketing, how they can take on board part of your journey, your story, your relationship with your suppliers and your commitment, so that they can embrace that as they go to market, and then they can be transparent also?
I'm very impressed by the latest campaign that I saw, trying to promote the concept buy better, wear longer. This is very important because this is a way to reconnect our relationship with our clothing.
Yeah.
Try to rethink the values of our clothing. So I think it's a good promotion to educate our consumers how to extend the life cycle of our clothing.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true.
But the bright side is about 80% of the decision making can be locked in design stage.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
So I think it's not just about being a manufacturer. It's about being a design or sourcing or product development role. We are all responsible to lead our industry towards a cleaner future, to net zero.
What would you say are your key features of your carbon calculator?
It's a really ambitious idea to develop our calculator in product level.
Think big or go home?
Yes, because we have a regular practice to track down our energy usage and the machine capacity. But for audit purpose, this is always a top-down approach.
It's something that's measurable.
Measurable, but it's calculated by the whole carbon emission in a factory, like in a year, and then we divide by the total quantity we produce, and then we have the average number. But there is always a blind side about it, because for this way, we would never be able to understand the difference between styles to style, or by different process. So back in I think 2 years ago, I have a really simple idea. I want to design zero carbon jeans. But then I started to wonder what process I can eliminate. I can combine together to make the carbon less impact to the
Or
product.
was able to identify hotspots?
Right. I looked online and there is not a lot of information about each process or what types of machine or how to speed up in order to reduce the carbon. So I had the idea to, okay, probably we should develop our very own calculator in the product level. So that's how the idea comes from.
So how does it work?
We started to work with our own. We spent a lot of time discussing how we are able to do it. Obviously, the data is there, but how we can set the scope and how we can make it understandable.
Understandable, yeah.
Yes, and it's not just like a tool, but it's like an exercise for our own self to examine precisely each process or each step contribute to a certain amount of carbon, and then we can summarize the whole result and communicate with our brands. So they are very excited about it because I think nobody have ever think about, okay, how to differentiate the carbon emissions by like rinse wash or exit wash or light wash. What is the difference and how big is the difference?
Because it helps make the design decisions better.
Yes.
If you can identify where you can reduce your impact before you even start your design, then you're automatically thinking the right perspective.
It's one of the really nice feedback that we got. It's like it encouraged designers to design with responsibility because every decision that you make, it contributes to certain things. So I'm not saying that we should always wear a rinse wash jeans and then we shouldn't put any fashion elements on the jeans. But when you think about it, you will make the smart decision and then you will have a better design.
Where did the challenges come from when you went into, I mean, everywhere and anywhere, but what were the key challenges that were really difficult in terms of the operational side? Or, you know, you've got different countries that you're working with, different factories and operations and machines and technology and data that you're bringing together. So was there anything specifically that jumped out and said, this was not expected, this was a big challenge?
Well, for data tracking is not really complicated for us because no matter in China or Vietnam or Cambodia, we have monthly monitor about the energy efficiency, machine capacity. So as I said, the data is there.
Yeah.
But to understand the data or to collect all the data and transform it into something that is understandable, achievable, and representable, that is the scope that we spend a lot of time debating. It's a good thing though, and discussing with each other. We seek the suggestion from our sustainability team, from a design team, from our sales team, including customers' perspective.
So it's all within Crystal.
Yes, all in Crystal.
But you're all aligning.
Yes, aligning our perspective. Because we know how big the project is and how big the project can be. So we want to make sure we start with the right perspective and then we started to grow. And we are actually still in the phase 1 to take a look at our direct and indirect carbon emissions within our own operation model.
It's like that theory and practice.
Yes, but another challenge would be scope 3 about the upstream and downstream distribution and the logistic. And honestly, it will take a lot of effort and probably years if we can apply the calculation in all the mills and suppliers among the supply chain, then we can finally see the complete cradle to grave carbon emissions on product level. But honestly, it may take years
and everyone to do their bit.
But we are eager to start Our first step in probably next year to collaborate with suppliers, probably start with fabric suppliers especially, and see if we can introduce our methodology to other stakeholders and try to build a mega calculator.
Fantastic, because if you have the blueprint, that's where you get traction, and you can model it to other people and it starts to scale up, and then impact really is seen. Where are the key features that you could say are hands down, this is where we're winning because you are changing from traditional to?
I think for net zero, the concept is fundamentally different, completely different. As we said, back in old times, we sew things by our own hand. Of course, there won't be any carbon emissions. But then started during the Industrial Revolution, when fossil fuels comes along, then it released the carbon. But then moving on to net zero, we need to apply entirely different approach. We always call it a familiar word, probably for you guys, the fourth industrial revolution. The trick is to apply digital technology process across the production, trying to maximize the energy efficiency. The second thing is to set a measurable improvement plan across performing indicators, and to drive sustainability gains by reducing consumption, resources waste, and the emissions. But if you talk about the appearance, it would be no different at all. It will always be achieved.
But behind the scenes,
behind the scenes is really different.
Are you considering the life cycle when you are for your net zero denim? As you say, cradle to grave, and you can control a certain aspect of it, the operational side of it. When you are doing that, are you considering what is going to happen to them at the end of life? Are they recyclable? What's happening with our toxins? What's happening with the chemicals we use, the dyes that we use? Is these part of your phase?
Yes, I would say, and not limit to net zero. I think it should be the things that you mentioned should apply for clothing, not just for denim, not just for net zero.
So it doesn't have to be specific to.
Does not have to be like specifically, okay, we have to think about the life cycle on the net zero denim, because I think it's a fundamental need when we design clothes to think further instead of just the appearance, just the design or just the trend. It's about the way we make our clothing. Here are some examples. To choose the material wisely, with regenerative mindset, to choose the materials that come from natural or the cellulose fiber that can be recycled easier, or it can be degraded back to the nature.
What, if there are any limitations when the design net zero? Because they're not dealing with operations, they're not telling you how to do it. They will create their 3D design and it will go to you. And is that where the decisions stop, or is there interaction on how that you're going to produce to get to net zero together?
I think actually we are all facing the similar limitations, no matter if it's like a big brand or in a really new developed fashion label. We all face the same limitations. Even though net zero is not a new concept, the scalability is still under developing. So when we trying to source the net zero fabric, the net zero trims, the net zero buttons, and net zero sundries, there may not be a lot of choices for us at this moment, but I'm sure when everybody is starting to contribute, trying to have their innovation about net zero products, then it will be easier for designers to go, okay, I want to design a net zero dress, then I actually can, because I can find it. Right. Because for now, For net zero, it's a bit tricky concept. It's not like a chemical that we can add onto our product, or it's not because, okay, we buy
It's not a
a
button.
machine,
Yeah.
and then by using this kind of machine, we can make a net zero jeans. It's not like that.
Magic.
Right. It's about the whole transforming actions about the operation for everyone, for manufacturing, for brands, for logistics, for building, for constructions. So it's a really long vision, and we are now in the first of few years. But I think when we are aware the importance and everybody's jumping in to do it, it is possible to make it happen.
Yeah. Does it affect the cost when you're manufacturing?
It's difficult to calculate by cost because I always find it more like a social responsibility. It's more about,
which is difficult to put a cost on.
Yes. If I always joke about, I wish it can be calculated by cost. If we can just add a chemical, we can just buy a machine, then we don't need to take so many efforts to do a net zero jeans. But unfortunately, it's not the case.
Yeah, because I mean, it costs a lot of money to get all of these machines, your laser machines, your AI, you know, all of these parts of the operation that you're transitioning and changing, which is necessary to do so, and there's no going back. But does that cost translate to the cost of the garment for the brand, or is this something that, as Crystal have absorbed, knowing that it's not about the cost, this is about our journey to do the right thing? It's about
journey. Yeah. It's about the continuous improvement that we are hoping to make. It's like a maintenance. It's like a facilities enhancement project. It's not about we want to charge you a little bit more money, so we buy a new machine.
You're helping us pay for these machines.
It's not like that. It's not fancy, but just by the cost. Yeah. But think about it. Every sector during the supply chain are actually contributing to net zero. Brands, they are having the marketing campaigns. Government is having the policy or fundings towards cleaner, renewable energy. So when everyone is trying to invest to make the net zero jeans or net zero clothing, then it's not about the cost because everyone is paying for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. As there's a much more value rather than a dollar. So future development, when you have like greenhouse gas reduction and net zero manufacturing and other types of garments, do you see this methodology? You did say you're going to move upstream, yarn manufacturers and things like that. And so are you quite confident that whether your dresses or outerwear, ski wear, shoe wear, this is something that can be not necessarily cookie cut, because everybody is going to have to adapt, and being agile would, I dare say, be the key. But is this something you are like, absolutely, as long as you're committed, you will see a difference and there'll be scalability?
Yes.
That we can make it.
Yes. Yes. I think that's the whole point about our net zero 2050 vision. It's a changing operation model or method. And it's going to penetrate into every sector or every types of garment form.
As you say, policy, everyone coming in and doing their bit.
Right. So I think it takes time, but if we start doing it now, it is all possible to put it in a scale development about net zero.
Super.